Russia once again shows how much it ignores any rules of war and how much it does not want peace. Shooting Ukrainian soldiers with their hands tied
Mm.
is a war crime, and demonstrating also this war crime in its media and being proud of it is it just to show the whole world that Russia ignores international law and doesn't really want any negotiations.
Hi, I'm Maddie Hale, and welcome to the Trump Report. Today we've spoken to Liubov Tsybulska. She's the founder of Stratcom Center in Ukraine. She's a former advisor to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Ukraine and the General Staff of the Armed Forces Ukraine. So she's really broken things down for us as someone that is on the ground in Ukraine. We've spoken about this 30-day ceasefire that the United States has proposed to Russia, whether or not Putin is going to take this. He's laid out a few conditions, but we're not quite sure whether he wants to do this. We've spoken to her about what it is like on the ground. What do militants need right now? What will they need from Europe if Europe has to go at this war alone without the help of the United States? So there's so much to unpack today. She's spoken to us about the biggest examples of disinformation when it comes to the Russia-Ukraine war, and I guess how militants are feeling as Russia continues in the Eastern Front. Her husband is stationed there as well, so we speak to her a little bit about that. So that's all today on the Trump Report. You can watch us Monday through Friday every day on Times Radio's YouTube. Liubov Tsybulska, founder of Stratcom Center, a former advisor for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Ukraine and the General Staff of the Armed Forces Ukraine. Thank you so much for joining the Trump Report today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, you and I are both kind of struggling to keep up with this ongoing news cycle. So much seems to be happening in the last few days when it comes to this 30-day ceasefire. Last night, we heard that Vladimir Putin was raising questions about the US proposal for the ceasefire. Ukraine's obviously said that they want to do it, but we aren't sure how this meeting with Putin and Trump's Steve Witkoff went. At this point, it appeared as if he was looking to reject it because he was raising questions publicly about how the 30 days would be used, how Ukraine would spend this 30 days, if they would spend it mobilizing, rearming, training people. And he questioned who would be the person to order the fighting to stop. So what's your response to this? Does it seem as if he will reject it or he will go forward with it?
I think that Putin's reaction to the ceasefire proposal was very much expected. Actually, this is exactly what President Zelensky was trying to say at that notorious meeting at the Oval Office. This war has been going on for so long and long enough to understand Russia and not long enough to understand his leader, Putin. And we know that Russia doesn't really want peace because they haven't achieved, as they say, their strategic goals. And their goals are destroy Ukrainian statehood and destroy Ukraine as a democratic sovereign state. And that's why Putin is now is in a position where he, on the one hand, needs to show that he is for peace. He wants peace, but on the other hand, he's not going to stop and withdraw his troops because he now wants to set some conditions, and we know what these conditions are. He wants to decrease number of Ukrainian military. He wants to stop militarization of Ukraine, as they say, and he wants to change the president. He wants somebody who will be very convenient for him. But this is against our will, and it's also contradicts the Ukraine as a democratic state, and also contradicts international law. So this is why we expected that he will reject this proposal.
On the off chance that Putin did accept the 30-day ceasefire, do you believe that he would respect it?
I don't see any indicator that Russia wants peace and they want ceasefire. So maybe there will be some political game around it. But now, as we look at Russia, we see that they only increase their military capacity. They build new ammunition fabrics. They try to find new and other partners for having components for Russian missiles and drones. They launch every day. They launch hundreds of drones on Ukrainian cities. And look at the front line. Again, there is no indicator that they want ceasefire.
Liubov, Ukraine's foreign minister, when responding to Putin's questioning about the ceasefire, said that Ukraine said yes to the US ceasefire proposal because Ukraine wants peace. Putin, rather than saying yes, puts forward various conditions. Ukraine seeks an end to the war. Putin seeks to continue the war. The rest of the words are just smokescreen. Is that your interpretation and understanding from
Absolutely.
most Ukrainians?
Absolutely. And to be honest, I think this is the largest disinformation campaign from recent times when Russia tries to convince the whole world that Ukraine doesn't want peace, that this is Ukraine who want to continue to fight. It is not true. And we've been saying this for many years. We just know that Russia now currently they want some time to regroup, strengthen their army and attack us again. So maybe they do need some pause. But as I said, there is no indicators that they want peace.
President Zelensky responded to Putin's conditions, saying that Putin is, of course, afraid to tell President Trump directly that he wants to continue this war. He wants to continue killing Ukrainians, and that any of these conditions mean that basically nothing will actually work out, pretty much saying that he's burying Trump with all these conditions, burying the rest of the world with conditions. So that it doesn't happen, so that a ceasefire doesn't happen, so that a peace deal doesn't happen. Do you think Vladimir Putin has been taking Trump for a ride this whole time, leading him to believe that he wants to end the war when he doesn't?
Absolutely. I think that Putin is trying to bring Trump to his side. He is trying to convince Trump that Zelensky is not trustworthy, and that Russia and US can actually have this deal without Ukraine, which for us, of course, is not acceptable at all.
Do you think Donald Trump will turn his anger onto Putin now that Putin isn't playing ball, but Zelensky is? We know that Zelensky and Donald Trump obviously had a bit of a fractured, tumultuous meeting the other week, 2 Fridays from today. Sorry, 2 Fridays behind us. But now that Zelensky has come to the table and he's giving Trump what he wants, but Putin isn't. Do you think that Trump will now say, look, I'm on board with Zelensky, and Putin is now, I'm going to turn my anger towards Putin?
It's so difficult to somehow anticipate Trump's reaction. All his statements were sometimes so contradicts each other, right? And just recently, he said that Zelensky is a dictator, and then he said that he doesn't remember how he said this. So I think it's very, very ungrateful to somehow predict what his reaction might be.
What do you and the broader Ukrainians feel about the United States? Do you feel like they have your best interests at heart? Because as you mentioned, we hear Donald Trump referred to President Zelensky as a dictator who started this war, and that Ukraine should hold an election to replace him. How does that make you feel in terms of the United States? Do you feel like they have you?
I must say that the meeting in the Oval Office was very demoralizing for Ukrainians. And we have always thought and continue to think that America is our great ally. And this is the country with very powerful democracy and very powerful institutions. And that humiliation of the Ukrainian president by the American leader was felt by all of us here in Ukraine. And we just also, I think it's important to say that all of us, we also think that our fight, our struggle is just we defend ourselves. We never attacked Russia, although this is what Russia is trying to state to convince everybody that it was Ukraine who attacked, which is, the world upside down. And obviously for us, it's is demotivating to see that the leader of our major ally goes for Russian narratives and spread Russian disinformation. This is something that we have never expected and never heard before. So yes, indeed, it was very upsetting to Ukrainians, but at the same time, I think all of us here got so much support from ordinary Americans when this meeting happened. From civil servants, from military, especially from military. So we know that this is not what Americans feel, and this is not how they what they think about this war.
Yes, absolutely. There was so much rallying around Ukraine after those controversial comments from Trump. But when you hear him say stuff like the United States doesn't want to continue funding this war, or when they revoke aid and intelligence, how does it make the military, Ukrainian military, feel? I know that you've got a relationship with them as an advisor, but when you've got history such as Ukraine sending its troops to Afghanistan and Iraq to fight alongside the United States, how do you feel when you've got that part of history that you stood up and helped the United States when they needed it? Do you feel like the alliance and partnership has deteriorated?
It's not just our troops participating in the events in Iraq and Afghanistan, but also the nuclear weapon that we used to have. We actually gave it up because we had these guarantees from the American side that America will protect us. So my husband is a military, and he's currently in the east of Ukraine fighting. And I know for sure that it was really very, as I said, demoralizing and demotivating for our military, because American aid is crucial for us. Especially, it's crucial when it comes to the protection of our civilians. And here I speak, of course, about air defense ammunition that we get from US, and also the other aid, like long range missiles and other stuff, other weapons that we get from US. It's going to be very difficult for us to resist Russia, but also it was very upsetting in terms of the feeling that we are fighting for certain values, and we always knew that Americans share these values, because we are fighting for freedom, and this is not just a word for the U.S. And this part was probably the most difficult for Ukrainian military to kind of embrace, that our values, these values that we fight for, are not respected.
How do you feel about that? I guess I don't want to say backpedal, but when the United States signed on to that security pact in 1994 to have Ukraine's back in the event that something would happen, in exchange for Ukraine giving up that nuclear weapons, how does it make Ukraine feel that they haven't upheld that contract?
It feels very unjust. We had one of the largest nuclear arsenals here in Ukraine, and we agreed to get rid of this arsenal, and to in exchange for protection. So it just feels unjust.
You mentioned before that your husband's in the military, and of course you have a relationship with a lot of the soldiers in the military, the Ukrainian military as well, for that week that the US revoked the aid and intelligence, and we know that they've reinstated it now, but for that period of time that they were without it, was it felt on the ground?
Of course, yes, of course. We know that those ammunition, those weapons, they were were on its way here to Ukraine, were just stopped in
Mm,
Poland, and we could feel it basically at once because there was no delivery and units. So again, it's important to understand that it has very material, very physical dimension. So when we speak about geopolitics and all these negotiations, it's not a show. It has the physical dimension. It means that basically Ukrainian military, Ukrainian soldiers fighting on the ground, fighting on the front line, they literally do not get weapons. They do
mm.
not get support.
Did you feel like when the Biden administration last year they signed off on letting Ukraine use those long range missiles to fire into Russia as opposed to just holding ground in Ukraine? Did you feel like Ukraine's military were really getting somewhere there?
Absolutely. Like we felt relief because it gives us an opportunity to weaken Russia inside. Because as
Mm,
I said, Russia is continued to increase this capacity. They build new facilities. They build new factories producing drones and missiles. And if we can hit them, not risking the lives of Ukrainian soldiers, if we can hit them in Russia, this is something that really impacts the war.
mm. Lyubov, the negotiations between ending this war, they do seem to be taking a little bit longer than Donald Trump had originally said. But if a peace deal is brokered, but the US doesn't sign on to a security pact the way President Zelensky has asked them to, do you feel that Ukrainians will feel safe and secure in the fact that Russia won't invade again?
I think we should need to have real security guarantees to feel safe and secure because we had agreements with Russia before. We had Minsk Agreement 1, Minsk Agreement 2, and every time Russia violated those agreements. So only when we have very clear, very solid security guarantees, we can feel safe. So far, as I said, there is no sign of it.
Mm. Some of the concessions that Russia wants Ukraine to make and that the United States could possibly ask Ukraine to make would be giving up that 20% of occupied territory that Russia occupies within Ukraine. Do you see a world in which that President Zelensky would sign off on giving that to Russia?
So far, it's something that I don't think that many Ukrainians can support. I think that it's not about territories again; it's about people, and we know what Russia does to these people on the occupied territories. Wherever that Russia goes, they just kill and torture and rape people. So, kind of to refuse to protect these people, fight for these people, is going to be very, very bad sign for all of them, and also for all the POWs that Russia has, and also all those Ukrainians, and especially children who were kidnapped and who are being held in Russia right now.
Mm. Vladimir Putin, he visited his troops this week, but a reporter I spoke to yesterday told me that he actually wasn't really anywhere near the battlefield, nor would he ever even put himself in harm's way. So you've got that, and then you've got contrasted with President Zelensky, who at the time that the war broke out, he refused to be evacuated out of Kyiv, nor did he even remain in a bunker when the fighting began. You can see him walking around war sites and a lot of exploded areas, meeting with troops. Do you think there's a clear difference between these two leaders?
Putin is a war crime. Putin is a dictator. Putin is the person who shouldn't be in the politics. He should be in prison. And we cannot even compare this to people
Mm,
because Zelensky is a leader of a democratic state. He was elected democratically, and this is actually why Ukrainians do not want to have elections right now, because we understand that, first of all, it's very difficult to ensure safety during the election process. It's very difficult to ensure a representativeness because many people left the country, a lot of people are fighting, but also because Russia will exploit it and Russia will use this election process here in Ukraine basically to bring mass here and to spread polarization.
mm.
So that's why we understand that we have to reach to the point when we feel safe. And then, of course, we want to have elections.
Of course. But Lubov, how does it make you and fellow Ukrainians feel when you have leaders from around the world who are not living in a war-torn country, who are not having to sleep with drone strikes going on, tell you that you need to be holding an election?
Um, it feels like they don't understand what they're talking about. That's how it feels.
Mm,
It feels that they never were in our shoes,
mm,
and they literally do not understand how even conduct this, how physically conduct these elections. We have to prepare for them. It's not easy, to have elections in war times when there are so many people are fighting and so many people are not in the country. So I think we all have to explain that it's almost undoable right now.
mm. I mentioned before that Vladimir Putin, he'd been reportedly visiting militants in Kursk, a Russian region that Ukraine occupied last August. It's reportedly slipping back into the hands of Russia after being which will be liberated fairly soon. But Putin has said that those Ukrainian troops in Kursk are trying to leave, but Russia is in control. He stated that their equipment has been abandoned and that they now have two options for the Ukrainians that are in Kursk, which is to surrender or die. Are you aware of where these troops are and how they are?
I'm not a military expert, so I cannot really
Mm,
comment on Kursk operation. But I've seen, of course, all those videos and pictures where Ukrainian soldiers were executed. And of course, Russia once again shows how much it ignores any rules of war and how much it does not want peace. Shooting Ukrainian soldiers with their hands tied
mm.
is a war crime, and demonstrating also this war crime in its media and being proud of it is it just to show the whole world that Russia ignores international law and doesn't really want any negotiations.
Lubov, we're 3 years into this war now, and the US has reinstated military aid to the country. But on the ground, when you speak to troops, when you speak to her husband, is there any specific equipment that they need right now?
First of all, we always are in need of air defense
Mm-hmm.
support, air defense system, because Russia continues to launch, as I said, a lot of drones and missiles, and sometimes they do it simultaneously, but also they're trying to exhaust our air defense. Sometimes they send drones with explosive parts, but also without it. So it takes a lot of ammunition to fight it, and this is only reason why how our cities and our citizens can be alive, because we have air defense and we need it more, but also we need. other ammunition. We need long-range missiles to hit Russia's facilities in Russia and weaken their military capacity, not letting them come and kill and shoot our soldiers, as I said, fully neglecting international law and Geneva Convention.
Just finally, Lubov, if the war continues and a peace deal cannot be facilitated any time soon, which prompts the United States to back out of helping, what do you need from Europe in order to make sure that Ukraine can win this fight and keep its territory and confirm long-term security?
We need leadership and we need responsibility. European leaders have to understand that without their leadership, it's going to be very difficult, even more, I guess, impossible to protect Europe. Because if Ukrainians fall, then Russia will go further. This is very clear, and this is what they say. If you listen to their statements of Russian leaders, that's what they've been saying for years, that they don't need only Ukraine. They want to go further. They want to go for Poland and Baltic states. And so we need to stop them, because this is a threat to European security, and this is the threat to European citizens, not just Ukrainian.
We need to listen to when Putin does warn that he wants to do this. Liubov, Tsybulska, thank you so much for joining the Trump Report today.
Thank you so much.